Typically, we start the limited preparation a few weeks before we meet up. We look at the spoilers, discuss which cards we think are good and stuff like that. Also, a lot of players get in a lot of drafts before we even get there. And then we try to just start by jamming a lot of drafts to get a feel for the format before we make sure to have some meetings when we actually share the information as well. We would like to look at the decks, discuss how we thought about when we drafted, and then tie it all together in 1 or 2 meetings.
I think the thing that really stood out for me from our limited discussion was that the Storm Chaser Spirit, I think it's called, the 5-mana 3/3 Flash Flyer. I think that I was just way overrating that card because everybody else on the team seems to be down on it, and apparently it's just not impressive.
In the first meeting, we mainly focused on the 10 color combinations. That worked out nicely with Fabrizio winning the GP.
At Rush of Adrenaline, it just went higher and higher in our card evaluation just because our decks become more and more aggressive. Combat tricks are really important, and 1 mana combat tricks is just great.
Basically, every combat trick is playable, and the cheaper the better, basically.
And then a couple days before the Pro Tour, just now, we had a longer meeting where we went over all the cards one by one. Beforehand, as kind of a homework assignment, I asked everyone to rate all the commons in a spreadsheet that I sent to everyone. Just go over all the cards and rank them 1 through 7. Then I aggregated all the grades, determined the average, standard deviation to get a feel for how we thought about those cards. After we did the commons, we then went over the commons, the uncommons and the rares, one by one, also trying to tire them. We had 4 tires.
It's not really about making a pick order that you always take this card over this card. It's a tool to talk about the cards.
For the best uncommons, I think we found that Duskwatch Recruiter was the best one. Very strong 2-drop that also helps with signaling to the table that you're green. For the other colors, we thought that Bound by Moonsilver was the best one, Lightning Axe the best red uncommon, Earthwall Illuminator the best blue uncommon, and Kindly Stranger the best black one. And for the commons, we felt that Fiery Temper and Rabbit Bite.
Byway Courier is the kind of card that you're not that happy first picking maybe, but it will basically always make your deck.
And it is helpful to know for certain uncommons or rares, is it better than, say, a card like Byway Courier approximately, or would you generally take it lower than that?
Like the last group where we found like a common that people really like picking, but it's not necessarily always a first pick. So Byway Courier in this example, but it's basically on the same level as Moorland Drifter or Throttle, and like which card we consider worse than that, because this is really relevant for especially the uncommons. Like how do you rate them below Fiery Temper but above a good common or not?
Baby was almost too good, that card, because everyone is really in love with it. So it ended up that a lot of uncommons and rares actually got placed below Byway Courier, but that wasn't maybe the plan from the start.
Generally, when we found a high standard deviation in the list, it is an indication that there was a lot of differences between the individual rankings of players. So those are the types of cards that are worth discussing. And then most of the time, we find that a card is good in certain archetypes and really bad in others. The Watcher in the Web, for example.
Watcher of the Web was rated pretty high. Like we just rated all the cards without any context. But I think if you take all the context into account, it doesn't really fit well into red-green because you want to be aggressive and you don't really want to have like slow 5-drops. It doesn't fit into green-white, kind of the same thing. And in green-blue, I think you have to be tempo and not control-ish. So it actually only fits to the green-black deck.
Black-green, it's not super exciting, I think, when you think of it. It's like big guys, some removals, but when you look at the cards, I think like 10 times we said, oh, this is not great, except in black-green. So you can expect to see them wheel pretty late, and I think that's why when you draft green, you almost always finish with at least a 2-1 deck, because almost all the cards that other people they could play but they don't really want to, you will get them late, like Fork in the Road, Stoic Builder, all those guys. They're not super impressive, but in these color combinations, they're actually really good. So, and that's not something I realized before we did like the meeting this morning, because I draft green-blue all the time, basically. So it was interesting for me to see that.
Another example is Sanguinary Mage, the red 1/3. This Sanguinary Mage is a card that we were actually pretty high on. We like to have the red 2-drop slot locked up, and it is a card that fits well in most red decks. But at the same time, we felt that we might be able to get it later in the draft if other players don't rank it that highly. So in terms of how high to pick such a card, there can be a difference between how good you actually think it is and how high you might want to take it, which also leads to bigger deviations and, well, an interesting discussion.